take it through other pathways to get more ATP for myself. So let's draw ATP here, and let's write a number. It's about 36. It depends on your origin for the type of substrate that you're using to enter through this pathway. Blah, blah, blah. Long story short, pyruvate, CO2 is lost. You breathe out CO2. And what's left is something called acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is a 2-carbon molecule that can then go into something called the TCA cycle. So we're going to keep this short. TCA cycle is also known as Krebs cycle. It's also known as citric acid cycle. But TCA cycle is a part of what we call aerobic respiration. What it does is it generates ATP through the use of, we said NADH was there to transport electrons to someplace else. We'll talk about that shortly. This also has NADH. But in addition to NADH being used to generate ATP, it has something called FADH2. And how many ATP are generated per NADH and per FADH2? Well, FADH2, here's a little hint. For our textbook, we're going to learn that FADH2 generates 2 ATP. Every time it passes through this other transport system we'll talk about shortly, it generates 2 ATP. So how many ATP are generated by FADH? Well, that's 3 ATP. And I just remember that because there's 2 ATP and 3 ATP, FADH2 for 2, and NADH is just the other thing. Niacin is a vitamin B complex, and that is what helps to create NADH. FADH is riboflavin. That's also another B vitamin. So what they do is they transport electrons down through the electron transport chain. As these electrons drop, we'll get to that shortly. We'll talk about concentration gradients. We just want to understand that as these electrons are transported through the electron transport chain, I can now generate ATP. And how many ATP is generated with aerobic respiration? We said it was 36.